Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you'll meet a very successful detective with the Irving Police Department who's about to launch a true crimes podcast. His story just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, from my history of doing 25 years of TV news, I covered a lot of national news stories, true crime stories, and in the years after TV news, I've gotten invited on some of these shows that kind of re-examine these cases that happened some 25 years ago in my life. And a man who's in studio right now is a very successful detective with the Irving Police Department. Scott Hodgins is in the studio. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about true crimes in general. I mean, the nation is obsessed with this, aren't we?
Yeah, obviously if you look at, if you watch TV, almost every other show on your network channels are crime-related shows. There's just a fascination to it. They're very interesting. It's very interesting to see how some of these cases go from, you have seemingly absolutely nothing to the case being solved.
Yes.
So, and a lot of steps in between.
And I think it's really cool with the development of DNA and all the technology that sometimes we can go back to cold cases from 20, 30 years ago and actually solve them.
Absolutely.
Which is
absolutely
really cool.
Yes.
More on that in a minute. I want to talk about your career. So you actually started in Baton Rouge.
I did. Almost 17 years ago.
Okay, so tell us about Baton Rouge. What was that like?
So Baton Rouge was very interesting. That's where I learned to become a police officer. It's where I learned to become a street cop. That's kind of a foundation to becoming a detective is being a patrol officer. It's where you learn how to talk to these people on the streets that you deal with on a regular basis. And so that's where I learned to do some of those things. There's a lot of crime in the city. So we stayed pretty busy.
Sure.
We stayed, a lot of violent crime.
Yeah.
So.
And then when did you move to Irving?
So I moved to Irving back in 2015.
Gotcha. Okay. What was the impetus for moving to Irving?
So actually, it had nothing to do with my job.
Okay.
So I was a homicide detective at the time, and my wife had a job opportunity here in Dallas-Fort Worth, which was something I had to look at as a family. We didn't have kids yet. Initially, I was, on the fence about it. I said, hey, I'm a homicide detective. I'm really enjoying my work here.
Sure.
It's important work. This isn't something you can get into from day one. So I said, hey, I'll take a look at it and we'll see what happens. So sure enough, I applied to the Irving Police Department, and next thing you know, we're living in Irving, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've had a very successful career with Irving. In fact, we've got a picture. You've received numerous awards, but this is one of them. And you were telling me just before the show how you got this certificate of merit.
Yeah, so this incident was when I was a patrol officer, I believe back in 2017. I was dispatched to a man that was in a mental health crisis. He was sitting on the edge of a bridge over an overpass, over one of our local freeways in Irving. I was the first officer on scene, and I immediately started talking to the man. I was negotiating with him, kind of built a little rapport with him, and I was able to, one of the things he was really concerned about was he thought we were going to come in there and hurt him. And I said, one of the things I specifically remember was saying, I promise you, we will not hurt you. We just want to help you. And after a little while of talking back and forth with him, I was able to get him over the ledge, and we were able to successfully take him in custody, not to jail, but to a mental health facility so that he can get the care he needed.
Wow. Well, let's stay with that scene for a minute. I can only imagine the pressure that you're under. I mean, if he jumps, you would live with that guilt for forever, right? You would play that out in your mind over and over.
In a situation like that, it can be tough. You always wonder, what could I have done differently?
Right.
You try not to beat yourself up too bad.
Sure.
But you can't help but to wonder, what could I have done differently? What could we have changed here to make it a more successful outcome? But it's nice when you do have a successful outcome like that.
Awesome.
And you can get somebody the help they need.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that your department is recognizing you for that. So I want to talk about what you currently do, which is crimes against children. And we were talking before the show that this is one of those types of law enforcement where everybody agrees the victim is the victim. Talk more about that.
Correct. Yeah, when you're dealing with children, particularly younger children are true victims in the sense that they can't get out of situations on their own. They're relying on an adult figure somewhere in their life to help them in every aspect of their lives. And so when they are victimized, they can't just get out of a situation.
Sure.
They're too young. Obviously, they don't have an income.
Right.
They just can't help themselves the way an adult can. So, and they're truly innocent. They really are. They're truly innocent. They didn't ask for this. They didn't put themselves in certain positions.
Right.
They were just victimized based on their innocence sometimes.
Wow. Well, I can tell from looking in your eyes, Scott, that you really have kind of almost a pastoral heart. I mean, you really care. You probably end up taking some of these cases home and thinking about them, huh?
Yeah, you can't help it. Some of these cases, they really do kind of eat at you at times. You always want to do, kind of the same thing. You want to do the best you can do to get these kids out of the situation. You want to get the justice that they can't get on their own.
Yes.
And hopefully send the message that in our society, the victimization of children is not going to be tolerated.
Yes. And you're about to launch a very successful podcast. So what have you already started thinking about episodes that you'd like to explore? Are there some cases that come to mind?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of different cases. I've taken a lot of different notes as things come to my head when I do this. Some of these cases are that I have personal knowledge of, I've been involved with. Some of these cases where I may have not been personally involved, but people within my department, whether it's in Irving or Baton Rouge, have been involved with these cases. But there are a lot of cases that I have in mind that I would like to feature that are from all over the country.
Sure.
And talk to various detectives from the NYPD to the LAPD and everywhere in between. As well as talk to figureheads,
Sure.
chiefs of police, and so forth during some of these incidents.
And I think it's fascinating, especially in hindsight. So when you think, I was a media guy for 25 years. In the heat of the moment, there's only so much that you can reveal to the media, or so much that becomes public. But then 20 years later, people start to talk. So on some of these true crime episodes, you're starting to reveal a truth that has never been told.
Yeah, you get some of these cases and some of these cold cases, and it's amazing how sometimes some of these cases come about. Sometimes it can be years down the line where somebody else gets in trouble for something, and they say, hey, I got a little bit of knowledge you might want to know about if you can kind of help me.
Right.
And obviously it depends on the situation whether we can help them, and a lot of that's can be up to the district attorney's office and their respective jurisdictions. But there are some things that come up every now and then that hey, that bit of information is the missing information we had when we had the case.
Yeah.
And so we can go back to some of these cold cases sometimes and
I love it. I mean, I'm wishing this for you in advance, that you're able to re-examine some cases that haven't been looked at in many years, and maybe push them back up to the top of the agenda for whatever police department should be addressing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope we can help, and hope we can show some of the great detective work that detectives all over this country are doing. There are some super detectives out there that are very dedicated in their work and their craft, and they're very good at what they do, and they bring justice to victims every day across this country.
Outstanding. Well, Scott, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your journey. We're going to end with the Irving Police Department Facebook page. If you want to get a hold of Scott, you can certainly get a hold of him through the Irving PD. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.